We're here live at PlayStation Meeting in the PlayStation Theater in Times Square, New York, and I wanted to get a hold of really, honestly, what are some of the best graphics designers in the entire world, and just sort of sit down and take a couple minutes to just kind of digest all this information we've been hearing, whether it's PlayStation 4 Pro, HDR, 4K, what does this all mean for the average gamer? So joining us, we have JB here from Guerilla Games. Welcome, JB.
Thank you.
Great to have you. We've got the great Al Hastings from Insomniac Games. And we've also got Christian from Naughy. Glad you guys could join us. So first things first, I mean, what are we dealing with here? Oh, looks like we have a mic problem there. Tell us a little bit from your perspective, when we see all these details about PS4 Pro, how does this thing stack up to the standard PS4 from a power perspective?
Well, it's about twice as powerful. Actually, probably a little bit more even. And there's also extra CPU boost, so it's a lot faster there as well. In general, basically, it can do things very close to 4K. And that's an amazing achievement in itself. Basically, looking at our own game, basically, it already looked very good at 1080, but now at 4K, it's really, really so crisp and refined.
What do you think, Al?
There's also a couple extra little pieces of hardware in there that are really clever, really nice refinements. So in addition to the 2+ improvement to the GPU's like core horsepower, there's there are a few extra twists that help you achieve that 4K level of fidelity.
Yeah, I mean, the support of HDR, that's for us is not at Naughty Dog. That's what we burn. I mean, it really allows us to show the immersive world we intended to really show. I mean, this thing has been living inside of the machine this whole time, and we're really just now being able to, thanks to the PS4 Pro, we're able to output that to the new TVs. And I mean, we're seeing it already with people going and watching the TVs backstage here. And yeah, the response is overwhelming, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make. It's like, for the last couple years, developers have really been diving into, physically based rendering, image-based lighting, so internally, we've got this richness, this high dynamic range in there that really hasn't been able to come out. We're squashing everything, cramming it into a narrower color space on a standard TV. The chance to actually let that out on one of these new ultra def TVs, it's pretty exciting.
That was a big leap, basically getting the first 4K TVs, HDR TVs in the office, and we turned them on, and our sunsets suddenly were so bright and vibrant that people are actually saying like, oh, we're going to need to wear sunglasses.
Yeah, I mean, we have some of these TVs set up backstage. We've got HDR going on a number of these games, and there are times where I am almost kind of like, when it's really bright, you're almost, whoa. HDR, that's one we're going to come back to shortly. That's one we're hearing a lot about tonight. Obviously, it's coming to all PS4s, going the whole way back to the original launch lineup in 2013, of course, as well as the PS4 Pro. But we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that topic as well. But I want to back up for a second and talk about these 4K displays, these 4K TVs that are out there. A lot of folks, I think, at home are probably wondering, I mean, obviously, 4K TVs still sort of nascent. It's growing quickly, but it has not reached sort of critical mass yet. So I think a lot of people are sort of like, 4K TV, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for a gamer? So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, once you've experienced the game in 4K, then only then do you know what you've been missing out on. The PS4 Pro is really enabling more data to get sent from the device to the TV, because it's an enormous amount of data to power these big 4K TVs. There's, like Mark was saying earlier, there's 8 million pixels that need to be fueled with new content every single frame. And we really weren't able to push that on the standard PS4. I mean, we can still deliver great images, but once you take the step up to the PS4 Pro and we make these enhancements.
It is like the step from the PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3, where we went from standard definition to HD. And now this, basically, it's the first time that you see it, you go like, holy, whoa. And then it's also really hard to go back, where you're just switching back. It's like,
it's tough to go back. I've been a fan of the TVs for a while, but I don't personally own one because there just hadn't seemed to be enough content to really compel it. you're mostly still watching upscaled stuff that was sort of authored at the lower, the 1080p resolution. But it's sort of an interesting place now where a video game console is sort of set to lead the content toward, real 4K. I don't know. It seems like an exciting change of pace.
I mean,
sorry to interrupt you,
please.
Sid. To kind of ground the higher resolution in something that's very tangible is, as you're playing through the game and you're walking around the game worlds, one of the drawbacks that we've had for a long time with regular HD TVs is that there's only so much we can do with the pixels. Like, they are as big as they are, and so you end up getting artifacts, and that's the nature of the beast, right? We do our best. It still looks great, but you're getting like shimmering. There is some of that, like, the jagginess going on, and it has a tendency of deterring from the overall game immersion and the game feeling. But now, when that kind of gets toned down, it's almost removed.
Yep.
Now you can just enjoy the game for what it's trying to be. I'm a believer, obviously.
It is striking, but one of the things, we're seeing a lot of these high-resolution games running on these 4K TVs, and I got to say, seeing them backstage, it really is something else. But, interestingly, and this is not a term I had really heard a lot, I think, before tonight, HDR. I mean, there are those who are saying they think HDR is just as important as the higher resolutions that you get through the 4K TV. So, Al, I see you nodding your head there. Why is HDR something to get excited about?
Well, so these new TVs can achieve a peak brightness that's sometimes more than 10 times what you could get in a more standard HD TV. You can't blanket the whole screen with 10 times. You'd probably go blind and blow a fuse. But you can get key parts of the image can achieve that level of brightness, and then the whole rest of the image can sort of use that extended range. So you see contrast, you see details emerge. The Uncharted demo is a great example of this. That you see detail emerge that just wasn't visible before. So you almost get the sense that the resolution increased just by the high dynamic range.
Yeah, I think with HDR you're getting much closer to what the human eye does. So what you see in nature, what you see in real life, that's sort of how it looks on the television. And maybe to call it a paradigm shift is correct. It's sort of like going from stereo to a full 5.1 audio set.
Interesting, yeah.
Like, where suddenly you feel the subwoofer. And maybe this is the same thing, maybe, where actually brightness is really bright. It's not just whitish on the screen, it's actually really bright.
That's fascinating stuff.
One thing to because HDR is such a new concept, well, it's not new, but for us, kind of like TVs and especially for gaming consoles to be able to output this kind of thing, is two things. One, it's not just the brights. We're also talking about the really dark areas in your scene now actually has more range. Like, we're able to show more of the dark colors. So you will see detail inside of the darks that you couldn't see before. But like, as a person that's never seen HDR, that might not know what we're talking about, I can say, try taking a picture of your friend with the sun behind them. Or even like you're inside and it's really bright outside and trying to take a picture, and no matter how you tune the camera, either you're going to see the face of your friend and it's going to be completely white outside, or you'll see the outside and your friend is basically completely black. And that's because of the high contrast ratios and the lack of high dynamic range. With us now being able to show that, it's adding yet another tool, really, because it's an artistic tool to the artist. Like, we don't, as a game creator, we don't have to make the sun so bright that you need to wear like sunshades to see it. But we have the ability of making explosions, or whatever things that makes the most sense, to be that bright and to communicate that the way you would see that in the real world.
Kind of an expanded palette for the artist, if you will.
Very much so.
You like that? No, we're talking a lot about 4K type technology. HDR not exclusively limited to 4K televisions, although that's generally where we're seeing that technology expressed. But I do want to spend some time to talk about the benefits for HD TVs with PS4 Pro, because this is a big point I mean, tell me a little bit about what you guys are seeing. You guys are on the ground. You're working with PS4 Pro. What are the benefits for those who maybe aren't in the market for a 4K TV or they're perfectly happy with their HD TV? There's still a lot going on there, too.
So what you're getting on a normal HD screen is something that we call super sampling. This is something from the visual effects industry, from movies like Star Wars, where you take a whole bunch of pixels and make one pixel out of it again. And basically you get such a sharp definition. You don't see any shimmering anymore, no aliasing as they call it. And it just basically creates a very crisp image, even on a normal 1080 screen.
Yeah, you do get a sense of the detail. You do get sort of a temporal stability that is hard to achieve at just sort of standard 1080p, because you're packing essentially more information into each pixel. And the image quality improves. It's not the same thing as seeing it in 4K, of course, but it's a noticeable improvement. It makes a real difference.
Yeah, I mean, it should be noted too that as developers we get access to whether or not the user has a 4K compatible TV or a 2K TV connected to your whether it's the base PS4 or the PS4 Pro. So we can make decisions if we want to use the type of technique that Al and JB are talking about, of kind of a super sampling kind of deal, or like some other games we're showing where they're actually cranking up ground cluttering and just making the world feel a little richer. There's definitely a benefit, whichever way the developer choose to go. There's a benefit for regular HD TV users as well.
And then there's also the option of a much more stable frame rate. Of course. So of course, basically, no game is perfect, and you're going to drop a frame here and there, unless you, of course, you're Naughty Dog. And you are perfect. But if you have a high action basically shooter or something like that, you're going to drop a couple of frames, and basically, what the Pro does is basically that it smooths that all out. Basically, you don't have frame drops anymore. It's just a perfect smooth 30. Or 60 if it runs at 60.
I think the Paragon demo showed some of what Christian was talking about, where they took a different direction than just going for image quality. And again, with the PlayStation Pro, you have more CPU to play with as well, which could allow you to increase actors' physics. And I think they were showing more grass detail, more little physics objects. So certainly up to the creators to use that however they see fit. The super sampling technique is sort of an easy way to get a solid win, but you could be more creative about it too.
One of the things I've been hearing a lot too when it comes to PS4 Pro is just there's a lot of choice. There's a lot of choice for developers about how they harness all that power. If they want to go into the really high resolutions, they can do that. If they want to focus on frame rate and fluidity and smoothness, they can focus in on that. HDR obviously is going to be something that's across the entire PS4 family. Richer visual detail as well is something that we're hearing. So really, it's kind of the choice is where it belongs in the hands of the actual developers versus having to be pigeonholed in one thing or another,
Well, that is also for the player itself. He has that choice itself.
Absolutely.
He can choose to basically go 4K and buy a big television, or run it at 1080 at a very smooth frame rate. It's really about the choice there.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, yeah.
Well, one thing to note here is just comment on the frame rate is everyone is trying to be really cognizant that the game will not run faster, like higher frame rates, unless you're playing like a single player style of game. But if you're playing multiplayer games, it will be the same playing field for like base PS4 users, PS4 Pro users. You're still running the same frame rate. Yes, you're running at a higher resolution. You might be seeing it in HDR, but overall, it's a level playing field otherwise. We're not benefiting the PS4 Pro users and skewing the community.
It's a good point. Exciting stuff. So we are running out of time, but I did want to take a moment here to touch on what each of you gentlemen are personally most excited about. You're all when it comes to PS4 Pro, you're all graphics professionals. This is what you live and breathe and eat this stuff every single day. So this is right up your alley, right? Something like PS4 Pro. So why don't we go right down the line? JB, why don't you start? Tell me what it is that you're most passionate about, what you're most excited about with PS4 Pro.
Well, so for Horizon, it's all about these epic, majestic landscapes. And we've been putting so much effort in getting the sunsets to look right and getting all the clouds to look right. And this is something basically where, especially HDR, has such an enormous punch. Basically, you just sit there and you go like, that's just real. And that's really exciting to see, and also for the artists working on it, to finally get that vibrancy that you see in real nature on the screen is really rewarding.
That's great. Al, what are you most passionate about here?
Well, so I mean, I'm enmeshed in the Spider-Man game, and we're trying to like bring to life a realistic and really detailed version of New York. And this place, it's a beautiful day here today. I was out taking HDR photos, trying to get some reference, and there's so much detail to this city, and to be able to see it in 4K and HDR, to see the detail emerge and come to life, it adds a level of realism that almost like your eye craves that detail to know it's a real image, to give it that sense of reality, and to see that come to life and increase the immersiveness. I'm really excited.
It's awesome. What do you think, Christian?
Well, as being a big part of Naughty Dog, like I live and breathe everything we do at work. I love our games, and we pride ourselves on pushing the visual fidelity, telling like immersive stories, grounded stories, and being able to do that now through the PS4 Pro and like the new brighter colors that we can show the user and really remove some of the it really improve on some of the detail that we're seeing backstage here. I mean, the future is really amazing, and the guys at work, me included, are really excited, especially about the HDR. It's like it's a new avenue that hasn't been tapped into for many years. We've seen resolution changes. That obviously is making a big difference already, going from 2K up to 4K. But this one, this is where games will really shine, no pun intended.
Especially when they're that's a good one. Especially when you're really building them from the ground up for this new technology. I think that's what gets exciting. I mean, PS4 is not going anywhere. Standard PS4 is here to stay, but I think there's a lot of interesting opportunity with this new technology.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at the games back there, and many of the games we're seeing, some are being kind of modified to support 4K, HDR, but if you build with that in mind from the ground up, now I think you'll see some really spectacular things.
It's exciting stuff, and guys, I really appreciate you joining us here.
PlayStation